The next speaker is someone that I've known for probably about 12 years now. Back when he was at Louisiana Lafayette, we went down there to visit one day, and we very interesting guy, very intense. Over the years since then, we've built a friendship. We would generally go to the strength conferences and sit and talk about guns and hunting and some lifting and stuff like that. And he and I got to be closer and closer. And then a couple years ago, he came to one of our events, Winter Strong. I believe he came to SummerStrong finally. And that trust and it kind of ramped up, and someone I've really come to enjoy. And I was talking to Benny Wiley this past year at the conference. So actually, he was here in the conference, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he's like Rusty Whitt. He's a real one. He goes, and after about 10 years, he'll trust you. And I was thinking back, I was like, yeah, it was pretty much about year 10. About year 10, we became friends. But I could definitely see how if this man trusts you and you trust him, that's certainly a guy you'd want in the foxhole. So I'm excited to have him speaking here with us. And without further ado, Rusty Whitt.
Let's go. Thank you, Bert. And thanks for the SoarNext team for all the things you guys are doing. This is the most amazing event I've ever been to. I was late. I was late to the SummerStrong party. 2018 was my first one. And didn't really understand how it operated and how the seats get sucked up really fast for the next presenter. And I'm in the very back. And is Pops here today? Okay, Pops, are you in here maybe? And he was standing on the platform, and he was introducing Bill Kazmaier. And, you know, growing up, I'm of the age where I grew up on Conan the Barbarian with Arnold and Rocky movies, trying to make that gym in Rocky 3 in my garage with the pulleys, okay? And in real life, you had Bill Kazmaier, ABC Sports, strongest man for 3 years in a row. And moving weight back then, that is still incredible, formidable. And there he is, Bill Kazmaier. I mean, as big as his shoulders are as wide as a house. And Pops introduced him, and Pops said something I never will forget. And he may have even forgot he said it, but he said, I've come to a point in my life where my heroes have become my friends. Hit me, man. And yeah, I'm going to get emotional because I think you live life with emotion, and you have to be emotional to get people's attention. I've been strength coaching at the college ranks since 1995. I'm an old timer at this. I don't feel like it. I don't think it. But you look back year after year, and when were you born, Nick? Shit. When were you born, Lanier? Okay, you're a little bit older. Well, Nick Bell, my GA, is going to be helping me out. Big Lanier Coleman, one of my interns for me at UL Lafayette, played at UL Lafayette. He's going to be helping me out. But heroes becoming friends. And I'm going to talk about heroes. And Bert called me last year around November and said, will you come and tell a couple of stories? And I don't tell war stories. My stories aren't near as good as the guys you heard yesterday. Okay? I mean, I had a 6-year stint in the military, and there's been gentlemen speaking up here that did 20, 25 years. But I coached military and coached, and I'll tell you, I don't want this to be about me. It's about the heroes that I've interacted with and become intertwined with, and I want to tell stories, but it's about the people, it's not about my journey, so to speak. But I want to tell you how I interacted with them. So bear with me as I tell my story until I meet these people. Does that make sense to you? Okay? I'm not going to get up and beat my chest. But a couple of stories about people who have impacted me the most and they changed my life. And I think about these situations every day. How would I handle this in their situation? How would they handle it? So here's some stories about machine guns, rucksacks, power cleans, Jameson whiskey, empathy, demonically possessed Olympians who fight against every odd to succeed, and some stories about desperate, forgotten, outnumbered soldiers fighting in places nobody even cares about anymore. But I do. And there's guys in here I know that still do. I'm going to try to stay on my cards, Nick. I am going to deviate 1 second, though, after I talk about the initial part here. So stories. My mother, 80 years young right here. Hi, Judy. Good morning. How are you doing? My brother, firefighter for 30 years, actual lifesaver, okay? Talk about heroes. My mom's a librarian, been a librarian her entire life. Degree in library science, right, from Texas Women's. And been a librarian at our high school, our city. She ran the city library for how many years? 22 years. And now she runs the Church of Christ Library in Azle, Texas, by Fort Worth. And our house is a library. Books everywhere. Time Life series, Civil War, World War II. The Old West. And I grew up reading about Davy Crockett, Civil War, General Patton, and my life was surrounded by books. And my father was in the 101st Airborne, Fort Campbell. So growing up, there were pictures of my dad on the wall with his Screaming Eagle patch, holding his parachute, him in basic training, and him, pictures of him and his guys coming out of the sky in parachutes. And so I grew up with that. The Dallas Cowboys were about 40 miles down the road, too. So I love watching Tony Dorsett and all the great players the Cowboys had. Roger Staubach, I'm dating myself, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. I grew up with this influx of military on my walls and the sports realm, and I fell in love with both aspects, or I was enamored with both aspects. So my mom, my dad, my bro shaped who I am, of course. And she brings home this book one day, The Green Berets by Robin Moore. Robin Moore was a journalist that embedded with the Green Berets in Vietnam. And they said, hey, buddy, we might get into some shit. I'm going to cuss, Mom. You can't talk about what I've done without saying a bad word once in a while. So I'm going to cuss. Here's an M16, Robin. We get in some shit. You got to fight yourself out of it. So Robin Moore gave a very gritty, compelling story about the Green Berets. It's a incredible book. Many of you may have read it. I'm looking through it. Of course, the picture on the cover blew me away. I was like, well, that's the baddest ass in the world. Look at that dude. Face paint, all that. I'm around 12, 13 years old. I see that book. Green Berets are force multipliers, which means 12 guys will go someplace where nobody really knows much about, and they're fighting against an oppressive regime, and they'll get about 15 soldiers. They'll train them. They'll get them to some mutual trust. And then those 15 will train more, and they'll bring some more guys in. And they'll go 15 turns to 30 to 45. SummerStrong is a force multiplying event. What you learn from here, one or two of you, or hopefully more, will go back and spread this culture, this message to your athletes, to your coworkers. So I draw some parallels in that. But this book, The Green Berets, was always in the back of my mind as I played junior high football, high school football, ran track. And nothing had compelled me to really actually sign up and join yet. So I wanted to pursue a college career in playing football. Yeah, I'm doing a slideshow. I'm doing a death by PowerPoint. So I stay on point so I don't journey off into Never Never Land. So bear with me. Nobody recruited me. I was 6'2", 185 pounds, skinny, underdeveloped, 17-year-old. Nobody recruited me. I walked on at Abilene Christian University, Abilene, Texas, Division II at the time. And undersized, I walked on, fifth string safety, day one. Day two, I was fourth string. Day three, the number two, second string guy tore his ACL, and all of a sudden I'm in the mix. I got a scholarship my first day of pads. So I walked on, earned a scholarship, played a lot, didn't have a strength coach, and our weight room was primarily for the track and field team because they were really good. They were like national champions. So I started hanging out with the track team to show me how to lift weights right. Got beat up, concussions, knee issues, the whole gamut. And then my last year, I'm being held together with duct tape. And Cliff Felkins comes in. Cliff Felkins, he was a world-class discus thrower who threw discus at Abilene Christian in the late 80s and was on the world throwing circuit back then, okay? And 200 feet, 1 inch. Is that a pretty good discus throw? He threw 200 feet, 1 inch, okay? So my first string coach was a world-class discus thrower. I don't think it's a very bad philosophy to adapt to. And he taught me how to clean, how to squat right. From 185 to 215 in about a semester. It was remarkable. Hey, quit eating the McDonald's and eat this. And he helped me out a whole lot. So thanks, Cliff. He's still the strength coach at Abilene Christian for their track team. I'm sorry, at Texas Tech for their track team. I graduated, degree in criminal justice. Doesn't really fit too well with getting a job in college, right? I thought I wanted to be like a Secret Service or maybe go to law school. I wasn't really sure. But then when Cliff came in, he changed my whole mindset, what I wanted to do. So I had to start all over again academically. I'm going to deviate here to make sense. I go to Dallas and start working on a new education to coach. And I worked at a Gold's Gym. Grand opening for Gold's Gym in Carrollton, Texas. It was the biggest Gold's Gym in the United States at the time. They just opened it. It was an old Kroger that made it a Gold's Gym. I sold memberships and sat at the front desk and would greet people and sell memberships. And then I would train people on the side inside the Gold's Gym. One day I'm sitting at the desk, it's a Saturday, and it's kind of boring and kind of slow morning. And in the door walks Hulk Hogan, Randy Macho Man Savage, and Miss Elizabeth come walk in. Boom, 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 right. I'm like, holy shit. Hulk Hogan, basically in his prime, was a giant man. 6'7", 6'8". He had his whole wrestling attire on. He goes, hey, brother, we're going to do a show down in Dallas. Can we work out in your gym? And Macho Man standing with this T-shirt with the little strings on it, looking at me. I'm like, the whole gym is yours. Miss Elizabeth just waved like this, didn't say a word, and they go over to the dumbbells. I was like, I got to see what these guys are going to do, right? So I follow Hulk Hogan to the dumbbell rack, and then the manager comes out. He goes, what's going on? I said, Hulk's here. He goes, what'd you tell him? I said, the gym's theirs. And he goes, good call. So Hulk grabs the 120s. First thing, upright row. Starts doing explosive upright rows. That was one of the little driving factors to get me on this stage right now. Another day, a guy named Ronnie Coleman comes walking in, and he goes, "This is my first time here." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And I knew who he was. He goes, "I'm doing a shoot for Flex Magazine. All right, can you situate me?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Manager goes, "Hey, go to the back closet and get the photo plates." What's a photo plate? Well, when Ronnie Coleman is laying on the leg press with 20 45s on it, not all of them are real. I mean, he could, but for photo purposes, they weren't all real plates. But witnessing a 5'11" man that weighed 315 pounds is around 4% body fat, holy shit balls. Was he an amazing guy? Another person, we weren't friends. I'm not saying I was friends with Ronnie, no. But I just watched him and saw him, and we're talking about heroes, right? So I called my old coach. He got me a job at Midwestern State as a graduate assistant. Midwestern State, Wichita Falls, Texas, Division II. Head coach Mike Calcote, he hired me. Britt Patton was already there working as a strength coach as a GA. 2 GAs ran the whole show. Britt Patton's uncle was General George S. Patton. And they look a lot alike. And again, he was an influence in me. I was there for a year and a half. Wanted to expand my horizons. I called every strength coach. This is before cell phones, believe it or not. I called every strength coach within 500 miles of Midwestern State. New Mexico, Oklahoma State, OU, Arkansas, you name it. And the only man that called me back was Rock Gullickson at the University of Texas. Rock Gullickson, one of my mentors, one of my best friends now, said, if you get in graduate school, I'll interview you. My GRE score was not good enough, so I had to retake the GRE, get accepted into kinesiology down there. Well, I didn't really understand the University of Texas kinesiology program. Dr. Jack Wilmore, if you're in your essentials book to study for the CSCS, he's like one of the main quoted guys in the back. Dr. Ed Coyle. These classes were serious. I was not ready. But I took a speed reading course and tried the best I could. And working for Rock was very demanding. Taking those classes was very demanding. Evan Marcus, he's a head strength coach for the Cardinals now. He was there. Ed Nordenchild at Virginia, thank you, or wherever he's at. Ryan Tedford, Adam Bailey. The late Angel Spazoff taught me how to power clean more efficiently. So interacting with a Bulgarian Olympic strength coach helped me be where I'm at right now. And he was a remarkable force. I had 9 hours to go to graduate. And I just got my ass kicked by a metabolic class by Dr. Jack Wilmore. Metabolic and conditioning and training, and it was just, it took all I had to get a B. And an internship came up to Olympic Training Center, Colorado Springs, 9-hour internship. So GA work in the football realm, take 9 hours of classes, or go to work, practice your profession. What's the best decision? I chose to do, it was win-win either way, but I chose to go to the Olympic Training Center. That's where I met the perfect athlete. That's part 2. I'm not going to spoil that yet, but that's part 2. I met the perfect athlete. Went to William and Mary, $600 a month, 3 meals a day, and I got to live on campus housing for free. I hit the big time. My first somewhat paid gig, William and Mary, I was working with Olympic sports. Field hockey, all the women's sports, you name it. I was dealing with them, learning a lot how to coach a variety of athletes. And having already been exposed to that at the USOC was great. Rock Gullickson had gotten fired at Texas along with Mac Brown, and they brought in Big Mad Dog and all those guys, and Rock got got let go. He went to Louisville. Rock called me. I'm at William and Mary. Rock called me. He goes, if you come to Louisville, I promise I'll get you a head strength job. Already had my master's, already had my CS. So I was all right, let's go. Let's go for a ride at Louisville. I was there for Louisville for the 98 season and then interviewed at Sam Houston State. Okay, Sam Houston State, 1998. Were you born yet? Yeah. In 98. December. Okay, perfect. $34,000, 12 sports. Man, I hit the big time. You're going to buy me a Z71 pickup. You told me to buy a Z71 pickup, Richie. Yeah, yes, you did. Z71, buy a new truck, 34K, 12 sports. I was excited. I show up December of 98. Benny Wiley was there. He just finished his eligibility. He was already running the weight room. Kent Morgan was there, who's the head strength coach at West Florida now. I was excited. I'm talking to Benny Wiley. We're sharing an office that was 5 feet by 9 feet. It had one computer. We were ripping LimeWire songs, using Napster, burning some really cool CDs. And I was excited to run the show, right? And Benny, many of you know Benny, he's a pretty dynamic fellow. Well, I realized I was going to work for Benny Wiley for the next semester. So I worked for Benny. Even though he was the intern, he had that place locked down. Benny left and graduated and went to the Dallas Cowboys. And I rolled on pretty good there. We had a good stretch. And I haven't told you this before, Nick, because I'm embarrassed. But July 15th, 2001, I was doing power cleans with our quarterback who had just transferred from SMU, a guy named Josh McCown. Josh played like 18 years in the NFL. Josh McCown was a remarkable athlete. I was not. McCown did 315 for a triple on the clean, dropped it. He was matched that old man. And I was like, fuck you, I can do that. I did 315 for one. It wasn't pretty. He's like, you got this. My max was 325. I did 315. Boom. 315. I got into a front squat. Got it out. He's like, one more. I did what I coach athletes not to do. It's an absolute no-no. I caught my last clean like this. Like a space invader, right? My right knee goes, bam! I felt an electric shock, and I dumped the weight, tore my right ACL, lateral meniscus, and broke my right femoral head at the knee. Boom! Worst injury that I'd had. And that's why we teach our guys to catch like this, right? It's the worst dumbass thing I've ever done in a weight room. Sometimes our athletes are so determined they'll try any way they can to get the weight. So that's why we emphasize technique so much. July 15th, it happened. My knee was so swollen up, they said we're going to wait a month to fix it. So swelling went down, and August 15th, I had my knee reconstructed on a Thursday. It was during camp, football camp. I told the coaches I was going to miss one day. I missed Friday, came back to work on Monday with a lockout brace. And who's had an ACL reconstruction? Sucks. Okay, you've all had the lockout, right? So I'm locking out and I'm walking around the field and I'm eating Vicodin, okay? Taking Tylenol. When I can, raising my leg up, trying to take a break off of it. So that's around August 18th or so, August 20th, and I'm going back to work. Rolling through there for couple of 3 or 4 weeks. I go to work. Had a developmental group. We went from 6 to 7. Developmental walk-ons and young guys. coach them, wipe up their sweat, go home. I got to teach a 10 o'clock class. Fitness for living at Sam Houston State. I'd go teach a class. I go home, put on some cargo shorts, 3-button polo, sit on the couch, prop my knee up, eat more Vicodin, turn the TV on, and I had my little Nokia flip phone back in the day. Remember those? Anybody? Nokia. Made a little alarm, 20-minute nap, and I'm laying there. And then I hear the words on the TV. I hear, "You are witnessing an enormous loss of life." It was 9/11. I'm laying in the recliner, my knee up, leg locked out, and watching this happen. How did you feel, Ed? Gutted, horrified. I felt helpless. I couldn't do anything. I'm an invalid at the time. Quickly, my grandmother, Mom Joyce, was 24 years old. Your mom was 24 years old on the day of Pearl Harbor. Okay? I looked it up, found her did math. Joyce Alva Miller was 24 years old when that happened. I promise you, that's right. She was a young woman. You weren't born yet. You were born a year later. Right? 42. Yeah. Okay. You're okay. She called me. She goes, "Rusty, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching TV." She goes, "Me too." She's like, "This is your Pearl Harbor." And she said it twice. "My God, this is your Pearl Harbor." And I was laying there with my leg up going, well, what am I supposed to do about it right now? And I felt hopeless, worthless. So before I hung up the phone with her, I decided, hey, I'm going to rehab my knee and join the Army. Back then, an ACL rehab with my other deal was about a year process. So rehabbed, walked across the street to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines strip mall off across the street from Sam Houston State's campus. Walked into the Army recruiting office. I was 31, and I said, "I want to be a Green Beret." He goes, "How old are you?" And I was like, 31. 28's the cutoff, bro, sorry. And I was like, "Can you make an exception? I'm in great shape." He goes, "There's a lot of guys in great shape." And there was a poster on a wall of a Ranger. Ed, you've seen this picture. Guy waist deep in the water holding his M16. He's got his patrol hat with a big taco fold in it and had a Ranger tab on his head. I said, "I want to do that." He goes, 31, cut off 30. Yeah, we can do that. I enlisted in the U.S. Army right there and walked across the street, told my athletic director, and he goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I just joined the Army." He goes, "What? Why? When?" Delayed enlistment program, and which meant I had to wait like 5 months to actually show up because a lot of people were signing up back then. A lot of people were making that sacrifice to join the military. And in July, I showed up at Fort Benning, Georgia. It's been renamed to Fort Moore, but I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and started basic training. 11 Bravo. Where's my 11 Bravo at? Infantry, 11 Bravo. And a training company in basic training had 200 guys in it. And we were in 4 platoons of 50 guys, 50 guys, 50 guys, 50 guys. They were all either Ranger contract or Special Forces enlistees. It's called the 18X Raid Direct Enlistment Program. And it was a melting pot. I was the oldest person in the entire section of Fort Benning. I was older than the company, first sergeant who was running the training. I was older than all the drill sergeants. And we had 17-year-olds in my platoon. And I'm 31. I got in 3 fights the first 24 hours with these little shits that were just annoying the hell out of me. And one day, it was early on, I see Brent Bindell. Brent Bindell's father is a kind of a legend in the Special Forces community. Brent Bindell is polishing his boots. And back then we had to polish black boots. He's polishing his boots. And this redheaded dude comes walking up and sits next to him. And he goes, "Hey, what's up, old ginger?" And he's talking to me, and he's a ginger too. And I was like, "Nothing. What's up, asshole?" And we just start talking, and we start shooting shit. And his name was Josh Townsend. And Brent Bindell was a Muay Thai fighter who lived in Thailand. And when 9/11 happened, he moved back to the States and enlisted. That was the level of his commitment. And Brent Bindell and I, he was 30, I was 31, so we're pretty close in age. And Brent Bindell was very social, and a lot of guys gravitated towards him because he was an alpha male professional fighter and had this rugged structure about him, and he was just like a cult of personality. So when I was hanging out with Brent, there was a lot of guys. I was meeting most of the company there, and I met another young guy named Rob. And I'll talk more about him. So Josh, younger ginger, he was 20, 21, early 20s, from Solvang, California. He was a wildland firefighter. So he would carry gasoline, chainsaws, and a little bit of food, about 100 pounds of stuff, and he would walk through the hills and valleys of California, Santa Barbara area, St. Ynez Mountains, and cut fire breaks. Very difficult job. Anybody do something like that in here? Anybody aware of that? It's a tremendously physically demanding profession. He was used to carrying a lot of equipment. His parents were from the hippie culture. He didn't take baths. He just didn't like this. He didn't take them. He stunk. He smelled like body odor. We called him Booger. But he was lovable. He was lovable. Became one of my best friends. And he would fight you at the drop of the hat. He's the kind of guy, you punch him in the nose, he would bleed and laugh. And he drank a lot of Jameson. Okay? And we lived together for about 2 years. And I got used to opening up the freezer and seeing 2 or 3 bottles of Jameson in the freezer. And he would drink at the most inappropriate times, like 6 in the morning on a Sunday. Hey, buddy, hey, get up. Let's go do something. Here you go. So he would just drink at the most inappropriate times, and it's like he got used to it. And if you're going to do Josh Townsend, you were going to have Jameson. And then when it was time to go, he would go. Josh could ruck. You know, the standard Army ruck is 4 miles an hour. Every 15 minutes you complete a mile. That's kind of the Army standard. Okay? Here you go, Rich. Nope, you got to do it. You got to do it. Nah, she won't do it. Nick? And Josh could be drunk, wake up in the front yard of our house, and ruck a 10-minute pace for as long as you told him to go. Lanier, where are you? Here you go. Mock, where are you? All right, you said you'd do one. Okay. So, here you go. But he was one of the toughest people I've ever met, and I learned a lot about his toughness and his grit and his unwillingness to ever make an excuse about anything. And he laughed through pain. And I'll get there in a second. Then you had Rob, high school gymnast, Wheaton, Ohio, 5'5", 5'6", 135, 140 pounds. Okay, very slightly built, very determined as a gymnast has to be, but he was not ready, I should say, for what was about to hit him carrying a rucksack, a basic training infantry rucksack. Weighs between 55 and 70 pounds. And this is the story of two rucks. He was persistent, but he was quiet. And I knew him. We didn't talk a whole lot because the age discrepancy. I mean, he's talking about video games I never heard of. And Bert, you want one? All right. And I didn't interact with him very much. I was talking to the older guys. We met a bunch of the older guys in their late 20s. Whoops. The older guys in their late 20s. But here we go, the shakeout. So, who's been in the Army? All right. What'd you do? Okay. But you know what the shakeout is. All right. So the shakeout. It's a packing list check. Now, disclaimer, this is not the official Army packing list, but the weight is the same. The official list is way more than this, and it would take way too long for this presentation, but the weight is going to weigh around 60 pounds, 65 pounds. So the shakeout, drill sergeants would induce stress. They would make you take all your stuff out of your rucksack, put it on your poncho liner, and they would do equipment countability check. And they would call out stuff. So let's go, guys. Let's get this thing going. About to metamorphosize myself into a drill sergeant. Equipment accountability. All right. Y'all ready? Show me sleeping bag, sleeping unit, pack it. 5, 4, 3, quickly, 2. All right, let's go. Body armor, pack it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 30 round, or 200 rounds of 308 ball. 200 round ammo can, pack it, quickly. What's 9 times 9? What's 9 times 9? Huh? What's 16 plus 7? What? Pack it. What is 16 plus 7? You don't got it? All right. What is 5 times 8? Pack it. Right, we need 4 MREs. 4 MREs. Show me 4 MREs and pack it. Quickly. What's 3 times 9? 3 times 9. Pack it. Quickly. 4 MREs. Show me your Kevlar. Get those 2 in. Let's go private. Hurry, private. Let's go pack it. 5, 4, 3. What's 9 times 6? 9 times 6. 9 times 6. 9 times 6. 54. There you go. Pack your snivel gear. Quickly. 10, 9, 8. Stuff it. 8 times 6. 8 times 6. What's 8 times 6? What's 8 times 6? 8 times 6. Pack it. What's 8 times 6? I don't get my answer.
28.
What?
48.
Yes. Helmet. Pack it. Quickly. What's 3 times 7? 3 times 7. Pack it. What's 3 times 7? 3 times. Hurry. 3 times 7. What is it? 3 times 7. 7 times 3.
How am I so bad at math?
7 times 3. That is the first introduction of stress on an infantryman in basic training. Does that make sense to anybody? That's how the drill sergeants would begin initiating stress. Okay? Because in a couple of years or less, you're going to have bullets flying over your head, trying to figure out the right frequency, talk to the F-16. You got a wounded guy, making sure he's not going to bleed out on you. chaos stress. That's the first induction of stress. Then we would put the rucks on our back and we take off. We're thinking rucksack march my ass. All of my cadre had been infantrymen. A couple of them had been to selection, got injured. They knew what Special Forces selection was like. They wanted to get us ready for it. So our ruck march turned into a ruck run. Okay? You're thinking 15 minutes, 4 miles an hour turns into 12. 12-minute pace. It's frantic. Rob is carrying a rucksack which was over 40% of his body weight. Here's a little factoid. If your rucksack weighs over 40% of your body weight, you're going to start having some shin, ankle, hip issues, back issues. So 150 times 0.4, a 60-pound ruck is over that. We're moving on both sides of the road, 200 guys, 100 and 100, and we're going down the road at a frantic pace. I wasn't quite ready for it. I was just trying to keep up with the guy. They wanted you to have one arm length between you and the guy, and they wanted you to be able to reach out and touch him, and we're moving. Rob was way in the back. Little Rob was way in the back. And for all the stragglers, they would make us stop and smoke us, waiting for the stragglers to catch up. All right? So Rob's a quarter mile back there. How long is it going to take him to get here? Hopefully quickly. All right, front-leaning rest position. We got mountain climbers. Ready? Right knee forward. Right knee forward. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Recover. Squats. Butt the calf. Down. Up.
1,
Down. Up.
2,
Down. Up.
3.
We're doing this in the middle of the street at 5 in the morning, waiting for the stragglers to catch up. Okay? So what's going to happen to the stragglers when they finally show up? The drill sergeants wanted us to kick their ass, apply peer pressure, humiliate them, whatever it might take. You guys tired? Okay. Have a seat. You can lay on your back for a minute. They were overwhelming to a lot of guys, but Rob was way in the back. They singled him out. And I was arrogant. And like I tell my athletes, I'm not going to tell you a war story or an army story unless there's a message behind it. I'm not going to tell you a story. He goes, oh, look at me, how cool. I'm going to tell you a story with the message behind it. And one of my messages is, I was an arrogant prick, and I shunned this kid because I didn't think he belonged there. I didn't think Rob belonged to be in the U.S. infantry. I didn't think he belonged to be a Green Beret. So I ostracized him. I cut him out. And maybe it was self-preservation. I don't know what it was. A lot of guys did the same thing. The guy was fighting for his life. And I didn't throw him a lifeline. But you know what happened? The little bastard, he persevered. Rob persevered. He completed, at the very back end of basic training, you do a 5-week field problem. It's called Advanced Infantry Training, AIT. And you had to do a 12-mile ruck to complete the course. And Rob completed the course, and he got his blue infantryman's cord on his right shoulder there. And he graduated from basic training. I did not graduate with my class because I got in a fight with a young recruit, 18-year-old, because I'm impatient and I'm a dick. I was a dick to him, and I laid hands on a private, and they said, well, why you did it we understand, but your methodology was wrong. And so instead of graduating, I got my blue infantry cord, I got my paperwork, but I had to stand outside the facility and pass out graduation flyers. That was my graduation. But Rob and Josh and all my buddies, they they graduated with the marching and all the pomp and circumstance. Then we all go to airborne school immediately. Like, boom, next day, you're going to airborne school. Fort Benning, airborne school right down the road. Remember that, Ed? Where are you at? Cosner? Completed airborne school, it's 3 weeks. And that's when I started a breathing technique to help me deal with all the running. And there's a reason that people do cadence. And the cadence calling while you're in the military is to help regulate your breathing. I did not know that. But there were times that we had to run around Fort Benning without doing cadence, but I had my own little cadence. Anybody know who Pearl Jam is? Pearl Jam? I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I didn't know the rest of the words because you're like, I don't know what the hell else he's saying. But that was my little quiet cadence to just, try to persevere through all this bullshit. Okay? So we go to airborne school, complete that. After that, I got a week off. I went and married a beautiful woman who looked like Jennifer Aniston. Remember? And my life balance was out of, you talked about it. My life balance was out. I eventually lost her. It was all my fault. And I got married to her, and we went to Lake Tahoe, eloped, got married, said, honey, I'm going to the Q course. I flew to Fort Bragg. She flew back to Houston, and we didn't live in the same state for 6 years. That was not very fair. That was thoughtless of me to put her in that situation. There's a little learning point many years later. Special Operations Preparation and Conditioning course. It was pre-selection. Instead of going, they spend a lot of money on these candidates at selection. Special Forces, a lot of money. There's a lot of resources. So to make sure they don't just put a bunch of bodies out there who are going to quit, they do a 2-week weed-out process called SOP-C. Okay, Special Operations Prep and Conditioning course. So Josh, Rob, Mark Becker, Dean Thomas, a guy who was an SMU law grad, a practicing lawyer who quit his career to be an SF. Barry Wallace, who was an Army boxer who decided to join SF. Mike Bendell, John Waldy, Brent Bendell, Mike Gill. All these guys, we called ourselves the Highwaymen for that old song. I was a highwayman. Willie Nelson, Waylon, Johnny Cash, Chris Christoph. We always listened to that damn song. And we called ourselves the Highwaymen. We thought it was cool at the time. We're standing around a fire. Anybody seen March of the Penguins? You know what I'm talking about? March of the Penguins, when they're all like circling to avoid the cold. Okay, it's warm in the middle. I go outside to get cold again. It's warm in the middle. They allowed us to build a fire as big as a trash can lid for 275 guys. And we're all like, it's like 14 degrees with wind chill, and we're getting warm, getting back in. And great friendships are forged through shared misery, right? Things you've been through together brings you together, right? So we're laughing. I mean, this sucks so bad. I mean, how bad does this suck? And we're making jokes about it. Well, Rob and Josh were pretty tight. And I was like, it's kind of a weird mixture, but Josh, the Californian, and Rob, the gymnasts, were pretty tight. And they're laughing about something. And I'm like, what are y'all laughing about? What's going on? Well, it was a revelation. You know how Rob finished basic training? And how he completed all his ruck marches? 275 guys started, 68 finished, and we're standing out there in the snow, and I find out that Josh had been carrying all of Rob's shit. He carried all his heavy shit. So during that shakeout, when there's only, 4 drill sergeants, 50 guys, they would go, heavy here, take this and take this. So put all the heavy shit in that ruck and all the light shit in that ruck. Quickly, make it happen. Let's go, quickly. Come on, guys, let's go. Travis Match is waiting on us. Let's go, hurry up. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. All the heavy shit in this one, light stuff in that one. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. You're not going to make it. 12 times 12. 12 times 12. There you go. Quickly. You didn't get one? All right. Any volunteers? I love this crowd, man. I got to go back to work after this. Shit. All right. That's a little overfill.
Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. I wish I had more time to pass out more. See me tonight. I'll have a table full. I'm serious. Quickly, heavy light. I don't know what you're doing, but heavy light. All right, Nick, what do you weigh? 250. I want you to stand on that scale holding that ruck so I can tell what it weighs. That's the heavy one, right? Weigh it. $330 what? 7? 338. You weigh 230? 250? 30, what is that, 89, 90 pounds? Somewhere around 90 pounds, right? Lanier, what we got here? You're 330, right? Probably more. I'll say 330. You carry it well. All right. What do you weigh? What do you weigh with the ruck on? Say 330. You can. It's okay. Just hold it. $330. We're at 395. 330. Let's call that one about 60. So 90 and 60. Josh carried, and I don't care if this sounds dramatic or not, Josh carried Rob's bird. I was light years away from thinking that way. Army's all about doctrine and doing shit this way for everybody. Well, everybody's not built the same. Okay? And we went on to Special Forces selection from that. That's what the revelation was. I'm not going to talk a lot about Special Forces selection. There's like a little code. You don't divulge too much. I'm going to talk about one event. And when it was the ruck for unknown distance, there were 200 candidates. 200 candidates. The cadre didn't yell. They were very professional. And they said, okay, gentlemen, the bottom 50 to complete this ruck are getting sent home immediately. You're going to get your gear on a bus and you're going back to Fort Bragg. Top 150 will continue. Everybody was in good shape. Okay, there were Afghanistan war veterans showing up at selection. Guys who've been rucking through the mountains. Bottom 50 were going to get sent home, and this is within 24 hours of arriving at selection at Camp McCall, North Carolina. I'm standing up there. Your rucksack had to weigh 55 dry with your water, 4 quarts of water, so you're around 65 pounds. I'm standing next to Luke Van Antwerp. Luke Van Antwerp was the fittest person I've ever seen in my life. He and his twin brother had just got second place in Best Ranger competition. Who knows what Best Ranger competition is? It is incredible. Luke Van Antwerp could with a 55-pound ruck, run a 9.5-minute mile on his back. I saw him do it. 9.5 minutes with 55 pounds on his back. A more remarkable conditioned athlete, military, tactical training kind of guy you will not find. Luke Van Antwerp is the commanding officer now for 10 Special Forces Group, Fort Carson. And I'm standing next to this dude, and he's wired different. And I'm like, and I'd already met him. I'm like, Luke, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm going to go fucking go. I'm going to fucking go. I'm sending it. I said, I'm going to try to stay on your hip. He goes, okay, do what you want. He took off his patrol hat, and he put it in his pocket. He rolled his pants up to his knees. I'm like, okay, I'll do that too. For every hour you carry a ruck, you should drink 1 quart of water. For every hour, you should drink a quart. Well, I have 6 quarts, one on each hip. That's 6 quarts of water. That's 6 hours. 6 times 4. We're not going to do 24 miles. I'm good. I can do this. I'm not going to do 24-mile ruck march. So I have no concerns. Okay, I can do this. Luke takes off running. And I'm like, I'm going to stay right behind him as long as I can. And got to stay in the top 150, right? Well, we started like 4 in the morning. We're not exactly sure what time it was because we had to take our watches off. 4 turns to 5, 5 turns to 6. Well, we're not on a hardball road anymore. We're on dirt, okay? Then we're on sand. Well, that 4 mile an hour pace turns to more like 2. And I'm guzzling water. It is January. It doesn't matter. We're all overheating. And I know we're going. I'm thinking, man, is this 12? Is this 15? And we get to an airstrip outside of Camp McCall, and they had these big cones placed to the right of the airstrip. And it's, you know how long a C-130 has to take off? It's that long. It's 2 kilometers. And I'm on the side in the sand, and it's all sand for 2,000 yards. And I hit my very first wall. If anybody's run a marathon and you hit the wall, I hit that wall. And I had drank all my water. I had a little bit left in the 2 quart, just enough. I think I had this in reserve, and it's sloshing around, and I'm getting passed, and I start hearing myself. I can't sing my song anymore. Pearl Jam, can't sing anymore. And I start doing that. Starts turning tunnel vision, starts getting black. What's about to happen to me? About to pass the fuck out, right? Well, I'm struggling, and I hear a voice next to me, and that's the light ruck, right? Well, I'll mess my mic up. I hear a voice, hey, bro, how you doing? Can you put that on? Let's go, Nick. It's 100 pounds of shit. Let's go. All right. I'm dying. I think we're almost done. And he goes, hey, bro, what's up? First time in my entire life I said these words. I'm dying. I'm fucking dying, Josh. Everything that I had invested in, I left a 9-year strength conditioning career. I left Tom Herman. I left all these guys that I had invested a lot of time in, coach. And if you don't make it, you're an idiot. You're a fool. It's embarrassing. And so I'm like, I'm dying, Josh. I'm dying. And he produces, I only said on the other side, he produces his rucksack straw. And he goes, here, grab a hold of it. He goes, hey, bro, drink my water. And I was like, He goes, stay on my hip, bro. We got this shit. We're almost done. What would that do to you? What would it do to you? How would you feel?
I'm drinking it or if I'm giving it?
You're drinking it.
Give me what?
Little life. Thank you. It gave me life. It gave me hope. It gave me hope. And then he goes, hey, we used to attack the Outback Steakhouse in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We would demolish this place when we had a little bit of time off. Anybody ever heard of it? If maybe it's still there, we would just destroy this place. And he goes, hey, bro, when we get done with this bullshit, we'll take you to Outback. We're going to eat every appetizer, blooming onion, and you can drink all the beer. We're going to do fucking shots. He saved me that day. About another 1,000 yards, we get to a false finish. There's 2 cadre sergeants, clipboard, stopwatch hanging, and there's these 2 cones, and there it is. Look out, we get to it. He goes, continue. This is not the finish. And he's like, we got this, bro. Come on. He nursed me and he drug my ass another 500 yards to the finish. After selection, 21 days of that, and that was like day 2. After day 2, he said, after day 2 of selection, it continued on. And that was the second event. After selection, 200 guys went in, about 80 were selected. A lot of those had already been whittled down by Stop C. And after we went to Fort Bragg, and they said, if you have any injury concerns, go to the med shed. We were allowed to wear PTs, soft shoe profile. All of our feet were hamburger meat. Nobody had toenails left. All our toenails were gone. Okay? Our feet was just hamburger meat. We'd lost skin. We had degloved our skin, taken off our socks. And everybody had something wrong with them. My main thing was my feet. Josh, who never complained about anything, he goes, hey, will you give me a ride to the med shed? Because I was the only guy who had a vehicle with our roommates. I said, yeah. I drove him to the med shed, dropped him off. He comes back out, hey, they got to do x-rays. All right, I'll wait on you. He comes back a couple hours later, and he's like, hey, I got stress fractures in both my shins. Dual stress fractures. I said, you did all that shit with dual stress fractures? He goes, man, my shins hurt, but I wasn't going to quit. I've had shin splints. I never had stress fractures. He endured the basic training, carrying all of that shit for Rob, which is what got him to that point, and then he endured selection. Well, he was put on a 2-week recovery profile, and then he was unable to do PT for a while. He laid on our couch and played Madden 2006, or 2004, I should say. And he laid and he drank a lot of that and recovered. And he continued on in the Bravo course, which is the weapons course. But as promised, we got through selection. And instead of going to Outback, we went to Washington, D.C., to Old Ebbitt Grill. And he introduced me to Long Island iced tea. I never heard of it. And he's like, I said, these taste sweet like tea. He goes, yeah, keep drinking them. They're great. I did about 6 or 7. I have no idea how many. At the point of this picture, I was obliterated. And there's Josh going, give me a little peck. But those were good times. Great friendships forged through shared misery. So, Josh and Rob went to the Bravo weapons course. Okay, they were going to be weapons sergeants on a special forces team. It's a shorter course. Okay, I was a commo sergeant. I'm like 9 or 10 months. They're like a five-month course. Josh learned Spanish, he already knew Spanish because he lived in California and worked with firefighters in the wildland fire. A lot of them were Hispanic. So he already knew Spanish, so he kind of cheated. Again, he had a way of being kind of crafty. Rob learned French, shorter courses. I went to Como and Russian, 3 hardest languages to learn: Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, and Russian. And I've been kicked in the head a few times in trying to learn Russian. He's pretty brutal. 2 years and 2 months I was in the course. They had already graduated, and they were on their teams serving on ODAs, Operational Detachment Alphas. So this is them on their graduation days. Josh on the left, Rob on the right. Josh went to 7th group, which is now in Florida. It was at Fort Bragg at the time, and Rob, the 3rd group, at Fort Bragg. Rob's first deployment, Rob was a weapons sergeant, and he carried a squad automatic weapon, a saw, because of the distance and the volume of fire you would need to produce when you were ambushed. And that's what they dealt with the most, was being ambushed from behind rocks, long terrain, 500-600 yards out. The saw, which I have produced here, it's not loaded. It's a pretty impressive weapon. 200-round magazine, 200-round drum. He carried 200-round drum, and he carried 2 bandoliered on him, so he had 600 rounds, but he carried a ruck with another dual load of 6. So he was loaded down. He would carry a saw. Carrying a 240 Bravo, anybody heard of a 240 Bravo machine gun? It's too heavy to track through the mountains. So this was the weapon he chose to use. And he was a saw gunner. He had gained some weight, got in the weight room, and was able to carry and be a contributing member of his team. And he became the senior weapons sergeant in a short amount of time. So, let's rehash a couple of things about bravery and toughness. We all think that we're brave and that we're tough until a situation arises that we're not used to. So there's voluntary suffering and there's involuntary suffering. And voluntary suffering is, hey man, I ran a 10K, I ran a half marathon, and it sucked, man. And you admire them for pushing themselves, but it was a voluntary trial. Okay, doing a really hard workout, squatting, doing some German volume or something. It's, it's self-induced. Then you have involuntary suffering. How are you going to react to involuntary suffering? And you as a strength and conditioning professional, how do you prepare your athletes for involuntary, situations? Maybe your athlete's father passed away, but he's your starting quarterback, and you need him for the next week. But you don't want to tell him with that. He's going through suffering. How are you going to handle all these involuntary suffering issues? You've had Kyle Carpenter up here, right? Bert, you with me? Yep. You've had Kyle Carpenter here, right? He endured some involuntary suffering. Jason Redmond, Navy SEAL. Chris Nichols is a strength coach at Army West Point. Remarkable human being, if you ever get a chance to meet him. Had his leg almost blown in half in Iraq, and had to fight like hell to keep his leg. And now he can deadlift like 540 on a very ugly, scarred up leg that he fought to keep. That's involuntary suffering. You have known and unknown stressors. We just gave these guys little doses of venom early on, okay? Intense training versus sudden stress, okay? The sudden stress is getting up off of that and actually conducting something like a 10-mile ruck march after you can't do math, okay? So my main goal as a coach is to build confidence and also induce frustration, because that's what the military taught me how to do, was induce frustration and work through frustration, but also build confidence. So throughout the years of coaching, if my main job and how I see it is to get this young athlete and make them a confident human being. Yes, sir. 5. But you never know how you're going to respond till the real thing happens. Rob's second deployment, Galwardish Valley, Kunar Province, Afghanistan. He was leading 7 Green Berets and 15 Afghan National Army on a battle damage assessment after an F-16 strike. They'd bombed a valley with Taliban in it, and Rob, being a weapons sergeant with the SAW, he said, I'm going to be point man on this patrol. They were ambushed by 100 Taliban fighters within 20 yards of their position in a steep valley. Okay, they were outnumbered. It's called plunging fire. They had RPGs coming down on top of them, belt-fed machine guns. And he orders his Afghanis to seek cover. The Green Berets already were there. And he's the point man, and he's at the very front of the ambush. Our core values at Troy football is attitude, toughness, discipline, and love. And love is not an emotion, it's an action. When you love somebody, what are you willing to do for them? And Rob said, break contact, break contact, break contact. And everybody starts seeking cover away, trying to get away from the ambush. And as that's happening, he realizes all their fire is directing on them because they're exposing themselves to break contact. Does that make sense? In their quest to get away, they're exposing themselves. And Rob made a split decision that you cannot train for. And he charged ahead. He picked up the SAW and he charged into the ambush. He ran into 100 fighters with RPGs and people-killing machines and fired 200 rounds of SAW, dropped the mag, loaded another 200 rounds of SAW, dropped the mag, 200 rounds of SAW, 600 rounds, got shot in the torso, threw hand grenades, got shot again, produced his 9mm pistol. He fought his ass off out of love. Mortally wounded. He was mortally wounded at that point, and Rob was given the Medal of Honor. His parents were there to receive it. President Obama gave him the Medal of Honor. I've got to get to the next story, man. I got to get through this. Josh carried a man's burden. He showed a level of empathy that I didn't even know existed. Teamwork, I've never seen a better example of teamwork in my life. He was selfless. He persevered. He showed grit. He broke doctrine, thought outside the box. And again, people's confidence developed at different times than expected. They're not here to tell his story. Josh didn't make it out of Afghanistan either. So he's not here to tell it. Rob's not here to tell it, but I'm going to tell it. That's their legacy. Yes, sir. Can I go on? The perfect athlete. I went to the USOC. This is before the Army. And I was told to open the gym early, 6 a.m. Had to stay till 6 p.m. I got an hour and a half off for lunch. And I saw volleyball, badminton, shotgun, wrestling, taekwondo, rifle, judo. And I had to coach all these athletes, never had seen the sports even occur before. And then solo and tandem cycling. Then that's where I met a young man named Matt. Well, he was 31, I was in my late 20s. This is not that long. Matt was a stoker, the back rider on a tandem cyclist team. He provides the horsepower. Anybody probably has seen these guys in the back. They just churn like a locomotive. The chest on wheels, the strategy in the short track, long track, they're pushing lots of speed, 55 miles an hour. Stoker and the captain must have great chemistry. Why was this athlete? Why was Matt perfect? A driven multitasker, an IBM engineer, and a world-class athlete. The smartest person I've probably ever known. And he was working remotely before remotely was the thing. Out of the dorm room, he was an engineer for IBM, doing code work. I didn't know what that meant. His 300-pound power clean is kind of a standard I have, 200 for females. All of his riding partners could do 300, and he couldn't. Pissed him off, so he would attack his power clean, and he was fearless. Wasn't afraid to fail on his cleans. Nobody ever complained around him. He had this aura around him, and he set a world record in his very first Olympics. 4,000-meter pursuit, a 12-time national champion. He was an elite cyclist. I did not quite understand the culture he had. Placed second, third, and fourth in U.S. elites. 80-pound walking lunges, 100-pound step-ups. I couldn't believe the intensity, the 8 hours a day. The 8 hours a day. Literally 8 hours of training a day. He never exhibited self-pity or asked for a day off. And 8 hours a day is something I talk about to our athletes. Are you putting in that work volume, that workload? So he would come in, do his workout, go ride, come back, work on his cleans because he wanted to match his teammates in his clean work. And on a Friday, I was getting ready to shut it down. Matt hadn't showed up yet. That was very abnormal. Okay, and I'm thinking, where's Matt? I have weekend plans. I'm going to see 5 more minutes if he shows up. Well, Matt comes walking in, and he had obviously been in a bad cycling accident. He had meat hanging off his elbows. His riding tights were ripped. He had blood dripping on his shoes. His glasses were kicked back on his head, and he had a big scrape on his face. And he was, let's get it done. I gotta do my cleans. I said, Matt, you're a bloody mess. And he was like, no, I want to get my work done. And I'm making that judgment call of he's bleeding profusely. I'm going to get him a towel, but I said, dude, not today. There's just too much. You got to go to the training room. Well, the training room's closed. It's Friday. I can't. We got to. Let's reconvene on Monday. And I wish he was here to tell me what he was thinking.
I'll tell you what I was thinking.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking you were trying to take my gas.
Okay. And Matt is a code writer for Facebook, and he writes code for those with disabilities. And Matt was a Paralympic athlete that I didn't even know I was going to work with, and he got put in our circle. And the most impressive individual, the most independent-minded, intelligent guy I probably ever worked with. And he was a world-class athlete and rode against sighted riders as the backseat stoker. And I had a question for you because we're out of time. My question is, what's been your main driving factor in life?
Use a mic?
Just talk loud.
Main driving factor in life. I think that, for all of us, it's kind of a mix of ego and curiosity. You always are curious about what is possible. I was born naturally curious. But then there's this thing, I just had something to prove, kind of like Jen was talking about earlier, is that I wanted to show the world that you're not defined by the things that everybody looks at you and think like those are your limitations. A disability, like blindness, it doesn't disable your eyes, your life, it just disables your eyes, not your whole life. Like the guys that all come back from war and are wounded, there's something missing, but there's something to gain too. And it's about respecting the person as a person, being known as an athlete. And I just wanted to prove that. Just wanted to prove that we're all walking around here the same. There's voluntary suffering and involuntary suffering, like he was talking about. And there's voluntary constraints and involuntary constraints. And when you got those involuntary constraints, you just work around them, find a way. And that's what this is all about, right? Finding a way.
Well, I was supposed to talk about heroes and give stories. He's one of my heroes. So we clap it up for Mr. Matt King. Love you, dude.